Hi everyone, welcome to today's edition of Bringing the Zoo to You. My name is Jess. I'm an animal care specialist here at Brookfield Zoo, and it is Bear Awareness Week this week. So today's Bringing the Zoo to You includes a bear. So next to me is another animal care specialist, Christy, and our brown bear, Jim. So you guys have the cool experience today to watch a training session with Jim. So I'm going to talk to you guys while Christy trains Jim. We're going to talk about the behaviors that Christy is doing with Jim, and then we're going to talk about brown bears, how they're doing in their native habitat, and how we can all help them. So first of all, I'll explain what we're doing. You can see that Jim just stood up on the mesh, and Christy has that stick with a red ball on the end of it. That behavior is called targeting. So what we want the bear to do is we want him to stick his nose to the red ball on the end of the stick. If he does that, we tell him he does a good job and he gets one of his favorite treats. Christy has a little bucket there filled with all sorts of his favorite treats. We can do a variety of behaviors out here. This is a mouth open behavior. That's a really cool behavior to teach animals because you know how a doctor's office, when you go, they say open your mouth and say ah? Well, the vets want to do the same thing with their animals here at the zoo. They want to see within the animal's mouth as well. You can see how their gums look, how their teeth look, how their throat looks. It's a really good behavior to teach all the animals here at the zoo. So they do that behavior. And then he can also do standing up here on the window, which is really cool. We get to see his paw pads, those nails, his belly, and it gives the guests here at the zoo the really cool experience of seeing these bears stand up right in front of them at our training panel. We love having this training panel out here on our public walkway because it helps us connect the guests with the animal. We can bring the animal close up and we can do kind of fun behaviors for people to see so that they can kind of fall in love with the bears the same way us zookeepers have fallen in love with the bears. We sometimes even pick out a guest to do a high five behavior at the window where we ask the bear to bring his paw to the hand of a guest as a special connection to do. And that helps people fall in love with those bears and care about the bears. So we hope you at home and here at the zoo want to learn a little bit how you could help bears out in the wild. So brown bears live here in the United States. They also live up in Canada. And here in the lower 48 states, the brown bears have a little bit of a struggle, and their struggle in their native habitat is typically related to human-bear conflict. So the bears and the people get in a little bit too close of quarters and it becomes a safety issue. So there are groups that are out there to help the bears' conservation issues. Right now I'm going to do a high five for you guys so you can kind of see that special connection that the bear can make. Do you want to stand behind me? There you go. Let's see if he wants to come over and do a high five for us. There we go. So like I was saying, out in their native habitat, it's that human-bear conflict that becomes the issue. And so there is a group called Vital Ground, which works with us. We have a partnership with them. And what they're doing is they are trying to identify which habitat areas are the most important to the bears and trying to basically buy that land so that it can be specifically for bear use instead of being, you know, someone's backyard or a mall or anything like that. So it's basically the common corridors. Their habitat is a little bit fragmented, so they really focus on fundraising to acquire those corridors that would connect the bears' habitats here in the lower 48 states. That's a really cool organization. What you're going to see next, what Christy is doing now, is she's actually doing a painting behavior with our brown bear. This is a really fun behavior that we do with them. It's one of the only behaviors where the bear gets to kind of control how he wants to do it. So Christy places that stick in there that has paint on it, and she has a canvas on the far end of the milk crate, and she asks the bear to move that stick, and however he wants to move it is acceptable. He can move it with his mouth, his nose, his paw, and we end up with kind of a cool creation at the end of it all. So it's a pretty fun thing to do, and I think the bears really enjoy to do it. Have a little change. The bears are extremely smart, so they really enjoy training. They really enjoy the reinforcement they get and the interaction that they get to have with the keeper. And what we do with some of these paintings is occasionally when we have a fundraiser for a conservation organization, we will auction off some of those paintings for that organization. So Jim is one of 2 brown bears that we have here at the zoo. His twin brother is behind the scenes right now. We separate the 2 bears during these training sessions because they're reinforcements. They just love them so much. Like any siblings, sometimes you might have a little bit of a disagreement about who gets what. So we separate them, and his brother Axie is behind the scenes enjoying some treats right now as well. One more time. So another reason why we have Bear Awareness Week right now in May is because it's the beginning of camping and hiking season in a lot of the areas where brown bears live. And so we like to take this week to highlight the bears and educate people about how you can safely hike, bike, or camp in areas where bears live. And I would say the 2 most common things you need to keep in mind are making your presence known to the bears, and then also storing your food properly. Those 2 things are the main things that are going to help when you're in that area. Oh, Christy's showing us our painting today. Lovely. Can we have a round of applause for what a beautiful painting he made today?
Good job, Jim.
So when you're hiking in bear areas, you want to make noise. So you want to talk with someone. You want to have maybe a little whistle that you can use occasionally. Because when hikers get into trouble with bears, a lot of times it's that they surprise the bear. The bear didn't know they were there, and then there's a little bit of an issue. So if you can make noise as you're hiking so that the bear knows where you're coming from, that really helps. And another issue is that campers or even hikers might bring food with them, and bears are opportunistic feeders, which means they're going to eat whatever they can find that's edible, that they like. So unfortunately, if people are hiking and they leave scraps of food nearby, the bears are going to be attracted to those scraps of food. So anytime you're camping or hiking anywhere with the bears, you want to make sure that you store your food properly and dispose of it properly as well. So a lot of times in bear habitats, the organizations there will have what's called bear boxes, which are boxes that are bear proof, where you can store your food and where you can store your garbage as well. So those are good ways to help reduce that human bear conflict and help keep these guys thriving in their natural habitat. So Lynette, do we have any questions from any of our viewers?
Yes. What is Jim's favorite behavior to do?
Ooh, Jim's favorite behavior. That's a good question. I think it's the mouth open behavior. It is the easiest behavior for him to do. He doesn't have to use a lot of energy. So a lot of times he'll just offer that behavior as we walk by and let us see his mouth. So he really loves that one.
And do they get any honey?
They do get honey, and it's true, bears do like honey. They love it. Bears do have a little bit of a sweet tooth, so we have honey here at the zoo. We can dilute it and put it in one of those like squirt bottles that you saw Christy working with. Right now what's in that one was sweetened condensed milk that has been diluted, but we can do honey diluted in there. We can do peach nectar, grape juice, all that kind of stuff they really like.
Do you do bear training every day, and if so, what time?
So we do bear training behind the scenes daily for all of our bears. Unfortunately, that's behind the scenes, and we don't have a set time that we do the training out here this year on the habitats.
And do you do it with all the bears?
Yep. The polar bears, so we have 2 polar bears and 2 brown bears. We actually have 2 sloth bears as well over at Fragile Kingdom, and all of them get trained similar behaviors just like these every day. There are some additional behaviors that we do behind the scenes that is just not set up here on our public area, but they are behaviors that help us have the bears kind of participate in their care. So this down behavior that you see, we can actually do it behind the scenes, we have a little chute that he can go into. So he kind of lines up in a chute and lays down. And when he does that, we desensitize him, which means we get him used to something just kind of poking his hip a little bit, like a stick or something. And we actually get him used to the idea of getting an injection, like a vaccine or something like that, so that he can just voluntarily participate. They really don't mind vaccines. They're really pretty casual about it. And then they get a big treat when they're done. So we can train them things like that. We also have like an arm sleeve that they can put their arm into. It's a big metal sleeve with a panel that we can open at the top, so they can participate in blood draws, voluntary blood draws as well. So they are extremely smart animals, and we do lots of training with them, which is probably some of their favorite times of the day, and probably some of the animal care specialists' favorite times of the day too.
And I know you have a big scale on the floor back there. So do you know how much Jim weighs right now?
I think the last weight on him was around 780 pounds.
Ooh.
And their weight can fluctuate. So in the springtime, they're usually a little bit on the lower end because they just came out of hibernation. And then as the summer season goes up, their diets increase more and more. And right before the winter comes, they are at their heaviest. So they can fluctuate 100 pounds easily within a year.
Is there a difference between brown bears and grizzly bears?
I love that question. So every grizzly bear is a brown bear, but not all brown bears are grizzly bears. So a grizzly bear is a type of brown bear. It's a smaller bear actually than brown bears, because grizzly bears live inland, so they only have access to fish when salmon are running through the streams. So they don't get quite as big, and they're called grizzly because they end up having like a little bit of a wavy, grizzled look to their fur. Now your brown bear, like this one, lives on the coast, so it has access to protein, heavy protein like fish all year round. So the brown bears get a lot bigger. Your biggest male brown bear could be maybe 1,500 pounds, and your biggest grizzly bear male might be more like 800 pounds. So they are technically within the same species, but grizzly bears are a subset within that.
What's their life expectancy?
Their life expectancy is about 20, 25 years. You might get a slightly older bear here or there. And then in zoos and professionally managed care, sometimes they live even longer because they have full-time vet care, they have meals provided for them, so they sometimes can live even longer. I think one of the oldest bears that has been maybe late 30s, early 40s.
Who's bigger, Jim or Axie?
This is Jim that we have right here, and he is always slightly bigger than Axie. He's always just been a little bit bigger than him, but they're close. I mean, we're talking 20 to 60 pound difference between the two of them at any given time. So it's not a huge difference when you're an 800 pound animal.
How many pounds of food do grizzly or polar bears? I'm just going to go through the whole list of all the bears.
It's okay.
How many pounds of food do the brown bears eat every day?
So again, that really varies based on the season. Right now, we're just getting into our summer season, so they are getting a few pounds of meat. They are getting a commercial chow, sort of like what you would imagine a dog chow looks like. They also get a ton of produce, lettuce, fruits, vegetables, at least 10 to 15 pounds of that right now. And then as the season goes, they'll get even more. So when we hit the fall time, when they're getting a lot of diet, sometimes they're getting more like 8 to 10 pounds of meat and additional fish and lots more pounds of produce throughout the day. So it can vary.
Are these breeding bears?
We do not have breeding bears. So like I talked about a little bit with brown bears, their biggest conservation struggle is that human-bear conflict. So most of the times at zoos, we are taking in animals from their native habitat that had a little bit too much human-bear conflict, and they kind of need a home that's not out in their native habitat where they're having that human-bear conflict. So there's not a real strong need to breed brown bears in a captivity. We're more of like a rescue type situation at the zoos.
And did you already talk about where Jim and Axie came from?
I didn't specifically mention it. So these guys are from Admiralty Island, Alaska. They were just 4 months old when their mom was shot by a hunter. And so they didn't live with their mom long enough to know how to survive on their own in the wild. Usually a young bear is going to be with its mom for about 2.5 years. before it goes out on its own. So that's when they learn where to find food, you know, where to hibernate, all that kind of stuff. And they were so young that they were just hanging out at the garbage site near the town, and everybody knew they were going to get as big as they are now. And because they didn't know the right places to go, they needed a home in professionally managed care, so they came to us at Brookfield Zoo.
Do they hibernate, or do they go into a torpor?
So these guys, in their natural habitat, it is a hibernation. A hibernation is when their body kind of slows down over the winter season. Our bears here at the zoo have always gotten up like once a day, almost every day in the wintertime. So they're not as true as a hibernator as they would be out in their native habitat. But even the bears out in the native habitat will wake up throughout the winter here or there to go to the bathroom or get a drink of water, things like that. And our guys basically are only awake for maybe a half hour a day to come. We offer a little handful of dog chow every day in the winter. If they want to come inside and have a little snack and go right back to sleep, they're welcome to. Most days they choose to, but every once in a while they choose not to and just sleep through the day.
And let's do one more question.
Okay.
Since you did talk about desensitizing them to vaccinations, what types of vaccinations do they get?
That's a really good question. I don't know the full list. A lot of our animals get rabies vaccines or distemper or different things like that, but I actually don't know the full list of what our brown bears get.
Yeah, I think Dr. Mike has said that it's pretty much what dogs and cats would get.
Yeah,
so.
And you know, they're related to dogs and stuff, so that would make sense. Another reason why it's useful to have them desensitized to a shot of any kind is when they need to get a routine medical exam, they're sedated, which is an injectable sedation medication. So they also do that once every 3 years, about that often. They'll participate in voluntarily lining up to have that injection for their exam. And at that time, we clean their teeth and all that good stuff. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Bear Awareness Weekend. Stay tuned. There's going to be bear videos this week and already has been. We hope you enjoy them all. We hope you learned a little bit about bear conservation, and we hope to see you here at the zoo soon. Bye.